Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alexa and Friends. My name is Jeff Blankenburg, and I'm so glad you can join us all here today. I have the special guest today, Neha Monga from Amazon. She works on the on the Alexa communications. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, super excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
Certainly. So we're going to talk about a number of things over the next hour. But one of the things that I really like to start with is asking some silly questions that kind of let people get a feel for who you are as a person. And so the first question that I always like to ask people, with all of the crazy superhero movies that we've seen over the last decade or so that have come out, I'm always curious to know if you could pick one superpower for yourself, which one would you pick?
Wow, that's an interesting one. There's so many superpowers I wish I had, and make life so much easier for me. Yeah, let me think that for a second. Actually, I know what I'm going to ask for. Like, if I could have one superpower, it will certainly be being able to influence my 2-year-old. Right? If I could just influence her, right, I think a lot of things would just be easier for me.
Yeah.
Like every day is like a constant negotiation about like things, and she does whatever she wants, and
right.
I love to be able to like, hey, how you don't throw food, how you actually nap when you're supposed to nap, and so I think that would be the superpower I want to have as a mom of a 2-year-old.
That's fantastic. I saw something the other day. It was a video showing the kinds of things that people say before they have kids, like I'll never let my kids do that, or they'll only eat organic vegetables, and like I'll never take them to McDonald's, all of those kinds of things. And then you cut to those parents 2 years into having children, and you're like, hey, I'm back. And McDonald's is like, oh, you want your regular? You're like, it's just the...
Yeah, no, totally. I saw this meme going around. I was a better parent until I had kids, right?
Yes.
so I was I certainly relate to that. I was like, yeah, I'm going to now we're going to have her screen time. Now we're going to have her eat all this junk food. I was like, no, eat whatever. And whatever it takes to feed you, I'll do that.
Right. I just need food to go into your body. And if that's going to be 3 co-hosts, then that's what it's going to be.
Exactly right.
Yeah, oh, that's so funny. Yeah, parenting is a challenge, and I think that if we could control our children a little better with our minds, or at least be able to understand what's going on inside their head sometimes, that would be incredibly. Now I have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I still wonder most of the time, like, what were you thinking, man? Like, so my point is, it doesn't get better as they get older, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. It feels so much better. Thanks for letting me know, Jeff. I was really hoping this goes away, but no.
Sure.
Different problems, I guess.
Okay, so that was my first question. That's good. So being able to control your children, I would assume that might apply to maybe coworkers or the bank teller or whoever. Like, hey, give me an extra $20. I think having that kind of mind control over people might be kind of interesting.
That is true. And why stop at 20, by the way? Why 20 bucks?
Fair.
Anyway.
Fair. All right, so next question, and this one takes a little bit of storytelling. So I want you to imagine you're walking through a large city. You're based in Seattle, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're walking downtown Seattle, and you want to get to a restaurant. You're meeting some friends at a restaurant, but it's one street over, one block over. And so you need to either walk down around the block, or you know there's an alley that you could cut through that will get you right where you need to go without making that longer walk around the block. And it's a light, sunny day. There's nothing dangerous about the alley. So you decide you're just going to cut through. And as you get about halfway down the alley, you notice at the end that you're heading towards that all of a sudden emerges a large horse-sized duck, like a big duck, about the size of a horse. And it doesn't look very friendly. And so as most people would do, you stop and you turn around thinking about, maybe I'll go the other way and I'll just make the longer walk. I don't want to mess with that giant duck. You find out that end has been closed by 100 duck-sized horses. So very, very small horses, but there's 100 of them. And so I'm always curious, now that you're in this situation, you're kind of stuck in this alley between these two choices. Which direction would you go, knowing that you're probably going to be met with a bit of a fight and you need to get out? Which one would you choose to try to make your way out of?
Yeah. Wow, that's an interesting one. I think first thing I might still take pictures of those things, because I think it might be amusing to show people later on. So I think that's the first thing I'll do. It's like, wow, that's interesting. Never seen that before. So I think that's one. The second thing is, which direction will I go? I think I'm still like, I don't want to judge a book by its cover. The duck might actually be really friendly, right? Like maybe it just looks like, strong, big, whatnot. And also is closer to the restaurant. So I think I'll try going that way first and try to like squeeze by, kind of like, say hello or something, kind of try act friendly. Yeah, but I think that's where I'll start going first.
Okay.
Because that's the shortest way to my destination.
Got it. I can see that. So I think many people choose the large duck, and some of the people in the comments were even mentioning that it seems like fighting one thing is easier than fighting 100 things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's that, but they are much smaller. But I'm with you. I think I go the big duck route as well.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that.
And to be honest, like what I've learned being a parent, like small things are not easy to deal with, as it turns out. So
no, we're gonna go full circle on that all day. I think. Great. All right. Well, thank you for humoring me with my silly questions. One of my favorite parts of this opportunity I have to interview folks, though, is to understand kind of what your background is, where you came from, how you got to where you are today. And then obviously once we're done with that story, we'll roll into kind of what you do today and what your role is. I know you're new to your role, so we'll talk about that. And we can talk about the future. So that's how I'd like the rest of this to shape up. So if you don't mind sharing with us, I'd love to hear maybe where you started university, college, and kind of where you went from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I stayed in Singapore. I think you were talking about like, big city. So Singapore, like it's a massive city. In Seattle, it's not even close to that.
Right.
And I studied computer engineering, and I also did like, minor in business to kind of round out, and took extra courses. That was a lot of fun. And then Microsoft hired me. So I flew down here for interviews, and then, to start my full-time job. So it was a big transition coming from a crowded city to like a much smaller place, like Seattle, especially Redmond, where the Microsoft campus is based at. So the interesting part about my interview was they asked me like, okay, what product by Microsoft do you like the most? And I was like, yeah, Excel, Outlook, they're all like great products. So that's how I ended up in Office. So I was a PM in Office to start off with, and I worked on Excel and Access services. I started off making products for developers and focused on end users. And from where, that was around the time that, mobile phones were not as big, but they were getting bigger. The first iPhone came out, and, people just changed, like that just changed the way people interact with mobile phones. They become so much more useful. The touch interface like really improved. So where I went from that was I joined a team within Office that was building Office apps for mobile devices. So this was iPhone, Android, and Windows Phone. Nice. So imagine like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, etc. And I kind of owned a bunch of horizontal experiences, how you sign in, how do you like set up, all those different things.
Very cool. Actually, side story, I was at Microsoft at the same time. So
is that right?
That whole Windows Phone era started, I was over there spending a lot of time thinking about how Windows Phone works and building things for it. Very, very cool how our paths have crossed a little bit.
Yeah, that is true. And I feel like everybody in Seattle at some point of time, like being in like, Microsoft, Amazon, like, Seattle is such a small place and there's so many like big tech companies around. Like, I feel like everybody's kind of crossed paths in some way. There's literally, I feel 1 degree of separation between all of us, like in Seattle, like in the tech industry. So that started my journey in mobile. And, that was, that just took off. Like, getting into mobile at an early stage was really good for my career. From there, I went to work in this company called Zynga. So Zynga makes all sorts of like social games. Some of them you might have heard of. Like, I specifically worked on mobile games like Word with Friends, Running with Friends, Scramble with Friends. So these are turn-based games where you can play like word games, etc. with your friends. And then I worked on some other casual games like which were like Match 3, Candy Crush style games, or poker, those kind of different games. So it was a lot of fun. So in fact, some of my friends make fun of me. You went from like building on productivity apps to very anti-productive products. So that is actually very true. The common thread between two was like, being able to like, build on mobile and kind of understanding mobile usage patterns and, what customers expect and what makes mobile successful. That was a really huge learning experience for me, kind of helped me in my career as well. From there, I went to Expedia, worked on marketplaces, again, web and mobile, right? And kind of the gamification aspect of it, that was kind of got me into Expedia. Once I started working in marketplaces, Amazon reached out. They're like, well, we have a role within the marketplace team, which is the third-party seller marketplace that we have. And so I worked on that. That's how I started my journey in Amazon, kind of built on that, built pricing products for 3P sellers to kind of make them successful. And then I wanted to go back to my roots of being much more technical. In fact, when I was in college, I did study artificial intelligence. That was my final year thesis as well on neural networks and AI stuff. So I was like, well, we have such a fantastic product here at Alexa. I want to, get into that. So I started working on Alexa on the mobile side. Again, mobile being kind of where I brought a little bit of expertise in.
Yeah.
And our vision being, how can we make mobile like a really like top assistant for customers when they're on the go using their mobile devices? And we had a bunch of products coming out where you can just use mobile phone, just like you'll use any other assistant, and you can have a wake word access on those devices. And very recently, in fact, as of 2 weeks ago, I joined the Alexa Comms team, and I think Alexa Comms has done a really good job at building products that bring people together, announcements, and being able to call, and being able to just drop in and check on like people, or in your household, etc. I think those are like really cool products. And what really inspired me was the kind of the next level vision of like, yes, we've done like these really good like basic blocks and connectivity blocks of communication, but how can we like look at the next level of needs customers have, and like really allow them to nurture meaningful relationships with not just their friends and family, but also beyond. And that vision really inspired me. So here I am in this team, 3 weeks in, and loving it so far.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. I know this isn't your first work with Alexa, but it's the Alexa communications team has some really interesting things that they work on, and I'm glad you're here and a part of it.
Yeah.
So when you think about communications, I mean, you talked about how it connects friends and family. It's things like drop-in and calling and messaging and stuff like that. What is there like a core mission to how the Alexa communications team thinks or works?
Yeah, I think the core mission is like really like about connecting people, and connecting them in a meaningful yet fun and easy way. Like especially given the pandemic last year, I think everybody was like in their house, like not meeting people as much, and especially the older folks because they were at high risk, etc. Right. So I think some of these products like really changed the way we were able to connect. For example, being able to like drop into elderly parents, or check on them or announce things. I think those. That really kind of using the building blocks. I think from there we got like further inspiration to like, okay, that just meets a basic need of being able to connect people, but what can we do in a more meaningful and social way of like creating active engagement, and giving them a reason to like connect with each other in like a very fun way. For example, like we launch features like send a hug, right? Especially during the COVID time, which is like, I can see like, sometimes you just need a hug, like, you're like in your house, having interact with people. So I think the core mission is definitely around like, not just, build products and letting people like build it, use it in a way to just connect with people, but also like think about what are the deeper needs of people, for example, to express themselves and like share their favorites. For example, another feature we launched last year was around sharing music, or sharing photos and being able to set that as a background kind of a slideshow on your Echo device. So I think where we're trying to go next is, building on top of the building blocks to actually, meet deeper needs that people have around connections with each other.
I like that. And so I think a lot about the device. Like I have a whole pile of devices here behind me.
Yeah.
And I think about how I use them in my house, right? I mean, this one here, if you tune in, you'll see like slideshow photos of moments from my family's life.
Yeah.
And I love that, but I have found that there are ways now where I can actually have like a collection of photos that my family contributes to, right? So my mom and my brother and my sister can all add photos to the same collection. And then we all get to have this kind of shared experience where we see everybody's pictures. Because I think it's a weird era that we're in now. And I think it's the future. But if you think back, I'm going to age myself a little bit here, but when I was in high school, and I'm very thankful for this fact, in high school and college, we didn't have a phone, a camera in our pocket, right? So the idea of taking a picture was a very deliberate choice. You had to get the camera out, and you had to take a picture, and then you had to go get them developed, and then you would put them in albums, and you would share them with people and sit down. And it was a moment where you would sit and go through all this stuff. And we have the exact opposite problem today, where we have so many photos of so many things, and we're not doing a terribly effective job of ever sharing or using any of those photos with anyone. We don't We don't post most of them publicly. We post the highlights, right? The really, really cool moments of our lives. But there's so many other great photos that I think miss out. And one of the ways that I try to solve this, I'm actually using an app called 1 Second Every Day. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No, tell me more.
But the idea is to capture 1 second of each of your day, So every single day, if you just take one picture or you capture a couple seconds of video or whatever, but there's something interesting or momentous about every day, and hopefully you can celebrate each day that way. But maybe it's just something silly you were doing with your kids, or maybe you saw something interesting while you were driving. Well, maybe you weren't driving, but you were a passenger. And as you think about like all of those little moments, I start stitching those together, and that 1 second every day becomes a 30-second video that I post every month. And I find that a lot of people really respond positively to that because it gives them those little glimpses into what my life is like. What am I doing on a day-to-day basis? It's not just, hey, I went on this cool vacation, or hey, my kid graduated from high school or whatever, right? It's not the big moments. It's all the little things of me laying on the couch with we foster some kittens sometimes. And so it's just a picture of me laying on the couch with a kitten on my chest, right? Like those are fun little moments as well. So one of the things that I'm really excited about for Alexa Communication specifically is the idea of how this can continue to evolve and allow us to engage with each other more without being physically present. And I think that the things that you guys are doing, like being able to share images or being able to share music, certainly being able to call and connect with each other, those things are only going to become more and more meaningful. I'm really excited for the future, actually.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the things we have to remember about like COVID, I think COVID and the pandemic fundamentally changed the way we communicate with each other, right? And it kind of forced a digital transformation. To give an example, I have a very distributed family. So I have family in Singapore, Thailand, India, London, Boston, all these different places.
Right.
And, we never had really like a video call where everybody joined in and all that, right? But somehow during pandemic, we ended up connecting so much more and having so many meaningful experiences, and that still continues, even though things are opening up and people are getting back to a greater degree of normalcy, than it was before. And I think that has changed, and it will not just go away when everything opens up. I think that has fundamentally changed the human behavior in some ways, and I think that is another thing that we think about in Alexa comms, how can we meet these new needs that customers have now emerged, and change, think about how they're going to use these products in the new world where some of those behaviors and will still continue despite things being opened up and people being able to meet in person. So I think that's another interesting part in the team.
It is. So I know you're very new to the team, but I would love your kind of insights. Being somebody that's new to the team, this is a big question. Where do you think the communications industry as a whole is kind of headed? Where do you see kind of the trends or the things that are the most important? Where do you see those things kind of landing over the next few years?
Yeah, I think that is a $1 million question. If I knew all the answers, that would be fantastic. But I think, I think a few things that I can definitely talk about is communications has always been a very basic human need, right? And there's a ton of products and services that people already use for sharing, connecting, and all these different things. And like I just mentioned, pandemic has also fundamentally changed the way and expedited some of those transformation in terms of how customers communicate. So I think there are few areas I feel like customers are still a little bit underserved. And these are, again, these are just my personal opinions, and not saying that, this is the roadmap for all of our products in the future.
Sure.
But I feel like this few things that I feel are doing really well, is this concept of affinity-based groups and being able to communicate within them. Of course we connect with our friends, family, and all that. But, when I became a new mom, I was like, I want to connect with other new moms, right? Or when I moved to a new neighborhood, it's how do I connect with the neighbors, right? And because we definitely have something in common. For example, we are in the same stage of life, we live in the same geographic area, or our kids go to the same school, whatnot. So I think there's definitely value in connecting and creating experiences around these affinity groups. And second thing is communications can go a long way in like helping customers stay safe and get help when needed. I think that is emerging as a bigger theme as well. And this is really around modeling some of the experiences that we had offline that can come online. For example, like when I travel and I have like boxes or like packages arriving, I always tell my neighbor, hey, can you like check on this? Or like, hey, can you just check on these houses? Or like hey, I need help. And how can the modern communication mechanisms that we have help me do that much more easily, right? Like which of my neighbors is available? Can I like broadcast something? One of the products we have is like Sidewalk. How can like that allow neighbors to connect and like help each other out in these kind of situations?
Right.
And lastly, I think like of course like voice is changing the way we like do anything, right? Alexa, other assistants as well, like being able to have this ambient computing present around you so you can do things much more easily. For example, when I'm in a car, especially on a long drive, I actually want to be on a phone call because like that's the best time for me to call my mom and pass time, and also like she's very happy that I call her. And instead of like fiddling in my phone and like finding etc., I can just say, Alexa, call mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or like send a message to someone I'm like running late, and voice just makes that so much easier, right? And I think that's definitely like a big trend, and I definitely see that continuing as well, especially like on the go scenarios, and when you don't have your hands available to do those things, so you're cooking and you're like, hey, I want to ask my mom, call her and like ask like, what do I do next in this recipe, right? Things like that. So voice definitely
there was a fantastic article that came out yesterday from one of our vice presidents of Amazon Science, and he was talking about what you're describing there, that ambient computing future and what that could potentially look like. And today, I think a lot of people think about Alexa and voice. They think about like a command kind of situation, right? Do this, go do that thing, turn this light on. But it's going to become so much more than that. And the one example he gave, it just sticks with me, I think, because this has happened to me thousands of times. But he wants that AI, that ambient computing, to be able to recognize situations that are out of the ordinary and be able to help you solve them. And the one he uses is just fantastic. You sit down on the couch in 5 minutes, or let's say 10 minutes from now, your child is supposed to be picked up from school. We can all identify with this, right?
Right.
And that's happening in 10 minutes. So we know that's coming in the very near future. But your ambient computing recognizes that you just turned on the TV and started watching something on Netflix. There's a good assumption there that you forgot that you have to pick somebody up from school, or you have to go do whatever that thing is. So it just pipes up and says, hey, don't forget, I noticed you started watching TV, but don't forget, you've got to pick somebody up in 10 minutes. Like those little things, again, are so powerful just by having a little bit of context around my calendar or what I'm doing watching a movie. But my goodness, the times that would have saved me, the times that I was like, I'm going to go do this thing, or a great example, working from home. My family is right outside this door. And so it's so tempting to go out there and talk with them and see how their day was. And when the kids were getting home from school, it was nice to check in. And I'd walk out of my office and I'd go to talk to them. And then 5 minutes, I'd come back and I realized I just missed a conference call that was starting because I wasn't been paying attention to the context of my calendar. But again, with that kind of ambient computing, it could say, hey, don't forget, like, you need to be in your office in less than 30 seconds. That call started. I think that stuff would be just incredibly powerful to have someone helping me stay on task. I guess it's really.
I completely agree. Yeah, you're right. I think a lot of assistants are like very reactive right now. They react to your commands, like you say, Alexa, like, remind me of X, or like do this. But, I can definitely see a world where she's more proactive, right? For example, Alexa can tell me like, okay, based on this, I think you have like, just like you said, like, the calendar appointment coming up, or, hey, I think it's time to start on the dinner. Otherwise it will be too late. All right. So I would love to get the help. It's a hard science problem to solve, but I think we are closer to it than ever. And I would really welcome the change of like, having someone like, be my personal assistant with me at all times and tell me what.
I always say that it's not a capability problem. We have the capabilities. Oftentimes it's a context and trust problem, privacy, security, that kind of stuff. Because if we were just if humans were willing to say, yeah, of course you can have access to any of my data anytime you want, all of these problems are solved today. The problem is that there's a trust element, there's a context element, there's the access element. How do we actually get access to that specific calendar to know that this thing is happening? How do we know what's happening on your Netflix? All of that kind of stuff makes a big difference. And so those are big challenges in AI and machine learning today. But I know that your specific team, Alexa Communications, has some challenges that you guys face. One, of course, most importantly, is hiring. I talk about this all the time. I know that everybody on our Alexa team is looking for people. So can you tell me a little bit about maybe what you guys are looking for or some of the challenges you guys are facing?
Yeah, like actually that is like if anybody asks our like, what's the biggest problem like the team faces, it is hiring high quality, talented people for, to come and help join us in building, all these great products that we want to build. We have amazing ideas. And of course we want new ideas as well. But, we're constantly looking across the board for like talented product managers, technical program managers, as well as, engineers and, engineering managers, because there's just so much to go do. And this, definitely need help in that area. And so I completely understand that voice and AI is a completely new area, so we don't expect people to like, oh, you must have worked and have like 10 years of experience, because a lot of these technologies didn't even exist to the level that they're right now. In that, I think just like people who have like good product sense, for example, for product managers, like good technical fundamentals, they should all consider applying and kind of getting into in and working in Alexa, and don't let that thing hold you back, that, oh, I don't know much about AI or NLU. Well, not today, but that's something you can learn. And I think that's a really good skill to have for the future as well.
Yeah,
because
I think that's a good piece of advice for lots of people. I actually talked a little bit about this during our office hours on Tuesday. But I always encourage people, if you look at a job listing and you say, oh, I don't meet all of these requirements, I'm not going to apply, I can guarantee with 100% certainty you're not going to get that job. What I always recommend is, if you feel like that's a job you want to have, if it's a job that you feel like that's something you could grow into, it doesn't hurt to apply now, because there's a good possibility that that's what they're describing is their absolute perfect candidate. And that perfect candidate doesn't exist, which is why they're looking. And so they're looking for somebody that meets as many of those requirements as they can.
Absolutely. And I think, like, for example, when I'm hiring, I think they're like, yes, there are those requirements. I'd love to get anybody who meets all those requirements. But, always keep in mind, like, I'm always looking for people who want to learn and are curious, right? As long as you have the basic tendency of like, oh, I want to learn, like, fine, I do not know this today, but I'm willing to find out, and have the attitude around, like, being curious, asking questions and finding resources to educate yourself. I think that goes a long way. Right? Because the technology has changed so much. We don't expect people to know everything and have the perfect background. But I think, I have been very successful in, hiring people and seen them done really well when, they do join, because they have the, passion for the space, and, they want to learn and do something in this.
Yeah. And so that brings me to another question, because I get this quite often as somebody that's constantly talking with developers and people external to Amazon. One of the big questions that I always receive is, well, but I don't live near an office. Is working remote at least on the Alexa Communications team, is that something that's still open for discussion?
Yeah, I think, and to be honest, I don't know the full story there yet. I'm still kind of, like I mentioned, new to the team, but I do know, like today, right now, all of us are working remotely, right? And I think that has helped in multiple ways. First of all, that has improved our tooling, because we know what tools are required to like help people successfully work remotely. Secondly, I think that has allowed people to like understand what is that right way, or frameworks to like, okay, when we are working remotely, like how to dial in on time, and give remote people chance to speak up, and all those different things that were not happening in the past, right? So I think that has really helped. Like everybody is on the same page about what remote working means. So definitely a helpful thing. But I do not know if the future, we are going to have people working 100% remote. At least we'll be open to it for the right candidates, I feel.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've been very fortunate to be one of those right candidates. I joined the Alexa team in 2016, and I had that conversation, right? I don't live in Seattle. I live in Ohio. And so when I talk about working at Microsoft, I've always kind of worked remotely. And as I talked with the Amazon team, I said, look, like my family's in Ohio, my kids are in schools there. Like it would be really, really hard for me to leave, but I really like this opportunity. I love to work with Alexa. And they gave me that opportunity, and it comes with trust and production, right? You have to be able to do your work well by yourself sometimes. And I think as this pandemic has gone on, a lot of people have realized, like, man, that can be really hard. There's a lot of distractions at home. I've been working at home since 2007, so it's been something that I've grown into and gotten used to. And I have a room with a door that closes and crazy lights on the wall, but that all of this is part of me going to work, right? Behind this
Yeah.
door is my office, and I live here and I work here, and I'll go out for the restroom and for lunch, but that's really it. And I think it is challenging for a lot of people to work remotely full time.
Yeah.
But like you said, I think for the right people, with the right roles, I think it makes a lot of sense for getting the right person versus getting the right location.
Yeah, and also another thing, like comms is actually a very distributed team as well. Like, we have teams like, for example, in India, like, there's some people who are located in the HQ2, which is on the, East Coast side. So like, even if it's not like, that particular city, I think it's totally possible to have people, for example, being located in the Bay Area or, like I said, the HQ2 and so on. So I think multiple locations are possible. It doesn't have to be Seattle, right?
Right.
So I think that's the other thing to keep in mind as well.
So this leads us to another discussion, which I think is interesting. As we think about being remote, one of the things that is often asked is, well, what kind of tools do you guys use while you're working remotely? From your perspective, I mean, you've been here a couple of years. What have you seen that's been introduced that's been new since we've kind of been in the pandemic, since everybody's been working from home? Are there any tools or technologies that you see Amazon using that stand out to you?
Yeah, there are a few things. So first of all, we use Chime and Slack a lot, right? So I think just having like really good video conferencing tools that work and can scale up to the large number of audience, I think that has been pretty good. And those tools did not work as well. They have evolved because I think more people started using them. So I think the quality and the performance of those tools evolved quite a bit. Another thing that we had always been doing, but I think we started doing more, is like using shared location for documents and using, for example, Quip for internal, like just taking notes and stuff, co-authoring, collaborating on different things. I think those are some of the tools came out. I feel like we don't have the one thing that we don't have, and I feel like we should, is like whiteboarding tools, collaborative whiteboarding tools. I think different teams have started kind of using like their own things, or like find like, oh yeah, this solution works well. So like, different teams have evolved around that, but I don't think we have a really good standard tool. I wish like, we'll invest more in that.
Yeah.
But overall, I think these tools existed. But pandemic has changed two things. Number one is like the quality and, scaling of those tools. And the second thing, I think we have kind of started using them more earnestly. For example, I remember we'll have meetings in the past and, there will be some remote attendees and people will just forget to dial them in until somebody messages like, oh, by the way, I'm on the line. You guys are not dialed in, right? So I think just like better usage of those things. And I think now the remote folks are feeling more included as well. They don't feel like, people just forget about them because they're not in the room.
Yep. I found before the pandemic, we have another tool called WorkDocs that does a lot of document management, storage, that kind of stuff. And I find that gets used quite a bit more now as well, especially for document review and for sharing of larger files, PowerPoints, that kind of stuff. And in fact, I use our WorkDocs for all the archives of this show. So all of the videos and all the statistics and transcripts and all the other stuff that we keep after we do all of this, all of that stuff is stored in WorkDocs as well. So that's definitely another tool that I've seen.
And I think that has been actually a positive change. So I don't know how much our audience know about, the doc culture that Amazon has. Like, before when you're in office, we'll actually have printed out docs that we read in the first 30 minutes of the meeting, right? These are 6-page docs that are pretty dense. People take their own notes and whatnot. But now because we have these collaborative tools, there's a central location where the doc is posted and people can, add comments to it. Everybody can see everybody else's comments. So it actually leads to a better discussion. A lot of times authors can even respond back to those comments, like just address the easy ones. So like the discussion ends up being more productive because everybody can see everybody's feedback in real time, as opposed to having those written down in their own personal copies of docs. I think that has been pretty useful in general.
Agreed. And that's one of the things that I really love about Amazon's culture is this doc culture, where more often than not, most of the other places that I've worked, there's an expectation that you've done a bunch of pre-work when you come to a meeting. You've done your research, you understand what's going on, you've read any kind of supporting materials that are necessary. And when you get to the meeting, it just starts and everybody talks. But you and I both know that most people don't do the pre-work because they don't have time, they're too busy. And so they get to the meeting and they're trying to gather context as they go and they're contributing where they can. But oftentimes, a lot of people sit silent because they just don't have the context to even make clear decisions or even offer feedback. So one of the things that I love about our meetings, yes, we have a lot of 1-hour meetings, but the first, like you said, 25 or 30 minutes is everybody getting the context at the same time. We all sit down, we all read, and then once you're done reading, then you have a lively discussion about what's going on because everybody had an opportunity reserved to read and understand exactly what's going on. It's something that when I first heard about it was a little surprising to me. Really, we spend all this time reading, but that's time we would have all spent anyway. And now we're actually doing it instead of just saying, yeah, I read the doc.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I have to say, like, for people who join new, like, it's pretty unnerving to see like 30 minutes, everybody's sitting in a room or on a call and everybody's just silent, right? It can be pretty unnerving, like, what's going on? But I think over time, like, you get used to it's like, 30 minutes of reading. Like, it's actually like, like you said, it's pretty like stress reliever because everybody's on the same page. They have seen exactly the same data. And, so I think it does a really good job of setting the stage for a lively discussion.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. So let's get back to the comm stuff a little bit. As we think about Alexa communications and some of the things that your team is doing. And again, I appreciate that you are very, very new to the team, but I know you had enough time to understand kind of the big things they're working on and some of the maybe success stories they've had. So I'd love to hear, as we think about Alexa communications, what are some of the customer-facing improvements or accomplishments that you've seen them produce that you're really excited about or proud to be a part of a team that has created any of that? Do you have any specific examples you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, those were some of the stories that I like read recently about Alexa comms. It actually really prompted me like, I want to join this team. I want to be part of this, right? So number one, I know one of the stories that I heard recently, and I think it was heavily circulated around different networks, my own networks, so I felt really proud to be working Alexa in general, was how Alexa literally saved lives during pandemic. So one of the things that some of the hospitals did when, the patient count and, like the stress in the systems became pretty high, with a lot of patients coming in, they actually started using some of the Alexa products within the hospitals to communicate effectively. For example, patients could reach out to doctors using Alexa, Alexa make this announcement, doctors could drop in and just really check on the patients, how they're doing and have this really good conversations with them. So I think that was like a game changer where, Alexa played a very active role in, kind of helping pandemic patients and connecting them with doctors and so on. So I think that was literally saving lives. So I think that was one of the stories I found really inspiring to me. The second thing that I mentioned, I kind of alluded to a little bit earlier was, when we got into this pandemic, I think people felt a little bit isolated, right? Especially the elderly parents, who couldn't meet their grandkids and whatnot. So I think, just being able to send a hug to a grandma or being able to do announcements and just check on them and do video calling. We also added integration for Zoom. So you could actually use your bigger screens rather than just phone screens, or without having to boot up your laptops, having conversations with your, friends and family. I think that was a very big, success story for Alexa comms as well, which customers really, really appreciated. And then, we have been trying to innovate further. You might know about this product that we launched. It's called Alexa Guard Plus, and it actually leverages some of the capabilities that the comms team has built around being able to set an emergency contact, being able to get help when needed if bad things are happening or you need assistance. So I think those were some of the good products that we launched. I feel literally helping customers in a new way using the existing technology. I thought that was very powerful as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. So you personally, I know, like you said, you have a 2-year-old. Is that your only child?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have there been any kind of fun communication related experiences? Maybe talking with your family, especially with your was it a daughter?
My daughter, she's extremely naughty and she's been partying on Alexa, by the way. She loves, she knows where to look. She'll point when she couldn't talk, she'll point at Alexa and can you play Twinkle Twinkle song for me? She'll actually point and tell me what song she wants to listen to. So she loves Alexa, and kind of having grown up with. My favorite story is one day I just came into the room and I saw I heard some giggling sounds. And I saw somehow my daughter figured out how to press a button to drop into my parents, and she's playing hide and seek with them. So there's Alexa, there's a countertop, and she's going up and down oh, hide and seek, can you see me? She loves playing hide and seek. And my parents are just going nuts over it, right? And I wasn't even involved, and I just come down and was wow, what's happening? I hear some sounds, and I thought that was extremely cute. So I made a video of that. That is one of my all-time favorite memories with my 2-year-old Alexa.
I love that story.
Super cute. Yeah.
I wish I could say I have the same experience with my children. When I call them on one of their Alexa devices, they have a little Echo Show 5 next to an alarm clock. And I'll drop in when they're still sleeping, and I'll be like, "Hey, it's time to get up." And I can see them obviously, and they roll over and they're just like, "Dad, leave me alone."
Yeah, I'm sure I'll get there. By the way, like I'm pretty sure, when she's like older, she's like, "Yeah, Mom, don't disturb me. Shut
Right.
off."
Right. And we try not to drop in on them, except if like they're sleeping, or we'll just call them with audio just to let them know what's going on. But it's always so funny how unwelcome it is for a teenager, So let's talk a little bit about the future then. I'm very interested in, as we think about the big picture, right? Way down the road, this isn't like, hey, this is what's coming out next month. This is long term. As we think about communications with Alexa, what does your vision look like? What do you see coming that you think like, oh man, 5 years from now, we're going to be able to do this or this? Like, are there any things that pop into your head?
Yeah, definitely. Like there's so much like, cool stuff, like cool technologies coming out that will, I think, become more prevalent and actually improve our communication experiences. I think one that comes to mind is like definitely the AR, VR stuff, right? I can imagine like, I can, maybe that actually helps a remote working situation as well. Like you can actually be in the same room through virtual reality or like, and being able to interact with people in a very natural way using maybe Alexa tools, right? So I think that is that's something I'm personally very excited about. I don't know, like, how long it will take for us to get there because the hardware support has to be there, the computing power on those, devices, etc. And, just like, technology to make the experience really smooth, the physics of AR, VR, where you don't get like motion sickness because you're using it like more than 5 minutes, etc. So all those things, but I have really, I have faith in our engineers to be able to easily solve that problem. Like, given how the computing power has been increasing and we learned so much kind of building on top of that. So I think that's one technology I feel really excited about.
I'll give you an example. Speaking of VR, while you're thinking about other stuff, we have 2 Oculus Quest devices in our house, so we spend a lot of time playing with VR. And I live by having a smartwatch, right? Like there's so much that happens on my watch that I want to know all the time, or it goes off and it gives me some information. But when you have a VR headset on, right? Not AR, but like full VR, there's so many times where my wrist will buzz and I will turn my wrist up to look at what's going on, except that I have a helmet on, so I can't actually see my wrist. But I can see my hands in the game, right? More often than not, you can see your hands. I wish, whether Oculus does that or wish there was a way to be compatible with that, so that when I get a notification on my watch or on my phone or whatever, if I turn my wrist like this, I'm holding the controller, it should be like, oh, he's looking at his wrist. That a watch appears on my wrist and gives me the information. Like, I think that kind of stuff would be just unbelievably cool to be able to kind of simulate my reality.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe even like, with your headset itself, like maybe there's an overlay that you don't even have to look at your watch. You get used to it. Like, information came, like, I give some kind of signal, like nod, it just projects on like, whatever I'm looking at. So I don't even have to like look away. And you're like, you're watching, maybe you're in a sports arena watching a game and you can like still get those things without having to look away and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah, my only experience, like, with AR VR recently, which I thought was very compelling, is like, I went to Coachella and, I was receiving my tickets. And one of the things they did really cool was they actually sent me the cardboard, the Google Cardboard thing. And with the link of like, okay, go download the content here, put it in. And I was able to actually experience how Coachella experience is going to be like. By putting that on, and I could like look around, okay, this is where the concerts are, this is where the facilities are. I think that was a really cool thing that helped me when I actually went to Coachella as well. So yeah, I just want to see that being more mass market and being able to experience more of that, right? So
I agree. We just went through an experience on our VR set that is a tour. You're familiar with Anne Frank? So they did an entire tour of the house that she was in during that horrific time in her life. And to be able to walk through it, and they would explain like, this is the closet where she hid for like a week and a half, and this is the attic where her family stayed. And like, it's so like, I can't easily go to Germany and see and interact with a lot of these things, but to be able to do that remotely from my home was, one, it was a really eye-opening experience, but two, it was incredibly educational. I learned a lot about what was going on there because it was so engaging.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then coming back to, actually, you gave me a really good point as well. Like you're talking about like different sensors and, having your watch and getting the information about that. I do see like, one of the things that might change in the future is like, having more sensors where you can, get a lot of different information, but in a smart way that it assimilates into something that's actually useful. Instead of like, like, oh yeah, there's motion detected at the back. Like, I want to get more information. Like, should I pay attention to it? Should I not? Like, or like my health sensors together, what is the story they're telling me? So I think that is other like technology I'm personally excited about. I don't see it relating to comms really well. Like maybe it's just a component of it, but using more sensors to get like the detailed information, kind of make it into like a smarter assistant.
Right. Well, I think there is something in thinking about that AR VR world where I'm engaged. I'm doing something else. I have the helmet or the glasses or whatever it is that's on. But I still need to be able to communicate and engage. When I get a text message, it would be nice to be able to synchronize all of those things so that I can still text someone back or use my voice to communicate back like I do in my car. But being able to tie all of those communication endpoints that I have, I mean, think about all of the different things that are going on inside your phone on a regular basis. I mean, if you just look at my home screen, right, I have so many notifications from so many different things, but they're all different people that I communicate with in different ways. And being able to still engage and communicate with all of those people without having to think about, oh, I have to go open this app on this device, being able to do that from anywhere at any time, that's a really interesting communications problem for sure. But I think that's a game changer to be able to just respond to people without being as concerned about what the platform is, just being able to say, oh, I got a message from this person, here's my reply.
That is true. And the smartest is being able to choose the right modality. Oh yeah, you always talk to your mother on WhatsApp. So if I say like send a message to my mom, use WhatsApp, right? Or whatever it is. Yeah, I think that's really cool as well, because I think the communication platforms are actually pretty fragmented. There's so many different ways of connecting with different people. So yeah, that will definitely be a game changer, even for anybody.
Awesome. So I have another Alexa related question for you. This is something that I like to ask a lot of the people that work on the Alexa team. As you think about your entire home, your residence, how many Alexa devices do you have? And they have to be plugged in.
A lot. Yeah. So first of all, every room has an Alexa device, right? And some of them have multiple, because I also have some Google devices because, I just want to stay on top of the industry or what's happening with. But I literally have an Alexa device in every single room.
Wow.
And in my car, and of course my phone, I have enabled Alexa to be my default assistant. So yeah, there's quite a few Alexas going around.
So do you, when you talk about your car, do you have the Echo Auto?
Yeah, I have that Auto, yeah.
Very cool. Some people have them built into their car now, right? Some of the newer manufacturers have Alexa built right into the head.
That is true. Yeah. So I think we have really good integration with some of the auto partners where we okay, Alexa is built into your car. So you don't have to purchase another device or rely on you having to connect your phone. And that way, Alexa also has access to more things around your car and can do more for you. For example, check engine light comes on because, Alexa has better integration. It can actually tell you oh, you should pay attention to that and whatnot, or kind of remind you later on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. I actually just got a new pair of the Echo Buds, the second generation Echo Buds. One, they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
They have a charging case, which I was really excited about too. So now I can just set them on a wireless charger and they just fire right up. But I'm getting on an airplane on Sunday, which I'm super excited about. I'm vaccinated, I'm ready to go. I'm coming to Seattle. And I can't wait to give them a good run on a long flight. So it'll be interesting to see how they hold up and how they work. But I will tell you the number of times that I've been in an airport with the Generation 1 Echo Buds in my ears, the time it has saved me, because I can just make phone calls while I'm walking. I don't have to pull my phone out or do any of those things. And it integrates a lot with a service called TripIt that I use for all of my travel. And I can say things like, what's my next gate? And it'll tell me what I should be headed to, right? So as I'm walking through a big airport like Atlanta or something like that, I can just continue to walk and talk while carrying my luggage and my backpack and everything else. And I still know where I need to go without having to stop and get out of everyone's way and look at my phone. So it's
that's so convenient. Yeah. Actually, I've been meaning to buy the second generation as well because I read the reviews, really good reviews and whatnot. And
yeah,
thinking of other devices.
So far.
Yeah. And the other product I'm really excited about. So recently I signed up to be in a beta for the Alexa Frames product.
Yeah.
So basically it's oh, do you have it?
I have it right here.
I played around with it, and yeah, they actually look pretty normal and nice. And then again, you have similar experience, you can call and actually listen to music, and it's so nobody else can tell that you even talking to no one else can hear her speaking up, and it's so convenient.
That's one of the things I really like about these, honestly, is that with the earbuds, like I'm closing the rest of the world off, and it has a mode so I can hear pretty well. But you are announcing to the world that, hey, I'm not listening to you when you wear earbuds.
Yeah.
With glasses, you're not. And it's very cool to be able to talk and hear, but also hear the world around you still. That's one of my favorite features of these for sure.
Yeah, and they look really cool as well, because sometimes, when we make these kind of products that are like wearables, I think there's definitely an aspect of like they have to look good, they have to be fashionable, or fit in with the rest of my accessories. So yeah.
Well, I'll be honest, I don't look good in glasses, but I think you look like a nice.
No, you do. you look great. Actually, I don't wear glasses. That was my biggest problem. Like, I don't wear glasses. Like, what I'm gonna use frames for? But at least the beta ones that I signed up for, they actually are just for computer glasses. Like, they cut out that blue light and stuff. So it's like actually good benefit for me to also get into the habit of wearing glasses. Better for my eyes too. So.
Right. So we were talking about travel a little bit, and I know that's kind of one of your big hobbies when you're not working.
Yeah.
So can you tell me about that? Travel seems to be a big part of your life.
That is true. So, actually started off in Singapore, because the good thing about Singapore is it's geographically located that you can easily go visit a lot of this weekend we can go to Thailand. This is a 2-hour flight, or a Bali, which is a 1-hour flight. And Singapore being it's small, so it's just easy to explore the areas around and get away. So I think that's where it kind of started off. When I was in Singapore, we were let's just drive off to Malaysia and all that. And so that just continued even when I left Singapore. And I've actually been to I can't even count 45 plus countries so far. And actually my claim to fame is I've actually seen all the 7 wonders of the world.
Oh, wow.
That was kind of a milestone for me, because, I only read about them, and, then I finally got to visit them. I was wow, impressed. And, my goal is to continue to see at least.
Definitely on my list. I haven't been there. Yeah. I haven't been there yet.
Which one?
The pyramids?
Yeah, the pyramids. And I have to say, so a lot of people ask me, which, wonder is your favorite? I have to say, Petra surprised me the most, how underrated it is compared to other wonders of the world. How few people went there, first of all, to Jordan, and how just magnificent it is to cut through the rocks of, and the whole city is just stunning and beautiful. And I love the fact that, it was unlike Colosseum, it wasn't overly crowded, and we were not I felt I had the whole place to myself. I'm so glad I got there before it gets overly popular, and
right.
It's the same as other places.
Right, right. So how many continents have you been to?
6. Yeah.
6? Okay, so you haven't been to Antarctica, I assume.
I haven't. And to be very honest, a lot of people are why don't you go there? I have actually a few friends who have taken cruises to Antarctica, right. But it's not in my recent, future for sure. Maybe one day, because it would be nice to check it out. But let's be honest, do I really want to be freezing? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
to
true.
See the penguins and all, and the life there.
It's very, very hard to get to Antarctica. They only let about 100 civilians on the island at any time.
Yeah.
And so I looked at going on a cruise a couple of years ago because I speak a lot, and I'm in a circle of a lot of other speakers, and many of us have spoken on 5 or 6 continents. We're well, we have to give a talk in Antarctica. We have to find a way to do that. Right? And so a few of them went on a cruise, but because of weather and some other situations, they drove very close to Antarctica, but they never got on land.
Oh, man.
And so it feels like that would have been I guess I'm glad I didn't go, because that would have been a big miss. I'd have been disappointed.
Yeah. That would be pretty. That actually happened to me once. There was one time we went to this location. It's called Cappadocia in Turkey, and it's really popular for doing hot air balloons, right? And it's stunning. The geography of that, the geology of the place is just stunning, which is why it lends itself really well to the hot air balloon. Sure. And I literally went as close to almost boarding the balloon, and then the wind situation was not gonna be cooperative, and we just couldn't do that. So went all the way to Turkey, went all the way to Cappadocia, had so much fun, but that one thing that I really want to do was almost one of my bucket list items, came so close and I couldn't do it. So maybe I just have to go again now. So.
I think you're definitely going to have to go again. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your time and your thoughts and your history with all of us. It's always interesting to get to know people, and you have an incredibly interesting history, and certainly the projects that you're working here in Amazon are incredibly interesting for the future as well. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much, Jeff, for this super exciting talk and and then having me here as well. Thank you so much.
Certainly. All right. Well, I'm gonna bump you off the stage for just a moment. I want to share a couple of things with our audience, and then I will see you in just a few minutes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you so much. All right, so I just wanted to share a couple of things with you before we wrap up here. The first is, if you guys aren't aware, Alexa Live was announced, and it's going to be on July 21st, and you can easily just find a link to Alexa Live in your favorite search engine. I don't have a URL for you here right now, but I would highly recommend making sure you sign up for notifications. Make sure that you sign up as soon as it's open. Registration should be opening soon, and you'll be able to register and get a spot to watch the event. But that's coming up on July 21st. This is our big event where we talk about all of the new development technologies, all of the new things that are coming related to the tech behind Alexa. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with all of you coming up in July. The other thing to remind you, I know some people in the chat were asking about technical questions. If you ever have any technical questions, there are two places that I can recommend you check. The first one is every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, we run office hours here on this channel. Whether you're here on Twitch or YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, we're on all of them at the same time. And we're taking your technical questions. So if you have questions, please join us at that time. We would love to have you there. But on top of that, if that time doesn't work for you, maybe you're not in the right time zone to match up with that, we also have a public Alexa community Slack. And on that Slack, there are hundreds, now almost 1,000 people that are Alexa developers and content creators that are there specifically to share and network and learn from each other, share code, talk about projects, help each other navigate the things that get involved with building things for Alexa. And so I can't recommend enough, if you haven't had a chance already to join, check out alexa.design/Slack, which I've just put here on the screen. It's a fantastic community, wonderfully supportive group of people. And if you have questions and you're looking for answers, that is where I recommend starting. So with that, we're going to wrap up for today. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. We will be back again next week. I will be in Seattle, so we're going to have a totally different studio that I'll be in for both office hours and for Alexa and Friends. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in today. We'll see you all again next week. Take care.